Hi, everyone. Good morning or good afternoon, wherever you are right now. But thanks for being here either way. I'm excited to walk you through today's presentation. So let's go ahead and just dive in. Just a quick introduction on our end. So my name is Brent. I'm a Sage Intacct sales consultant with Vision 33, and I'm based here in Vancouver, Canada. And my role here at the company is to mainly help finance teams learn how they could start getting the most out of Sage Intacct. So things like maybe they want to streamline all their processes or just improve reporting. At the end, just setting them up for faster and smarter decisions. And joining me today is my colleague Matthew, who will be walking us through a short live demo of Sage Intacct today to show us a little of this in action. A quick rundown of today's session. So I'm just going to start off with a brief 5-minute intro, and then Matthew will take over for about 40 minutes with a demo, and then we can wrap things up with some extra questions at the end as well. But before we move into the demo, I want to give you just a brief overview of who is Vision 33. So mainly our purpose has always been to help organizations just run better and grow smarter by turning technology into real practical business value. So using things like ERP, automation, integration, and of course, ongoing care and support with that as well. And our mission, again, since the inception, has been simple: to deliver on the promise of what technology could do and the value that it can deliver. So we're also a global company with over 400 people, mostly client facing as well. And we're focused on helping customers succeed by solving their business challenges. So we specialize in Sage, Amazon Web Services for hosting, and even have an SAP department as well. So giving us a deep expertise across the financial technology landscape. And then speaking of partnerships, so we know that, of course, just choosing the right software, that's important. But what sometimes matters more is choosing the right partner, especially since it's long term. And so with the real value that you'll find is that comes from the strong collaboration between your team and ours. Also, we have offices across the globe as well, Canada, the UK, and the US. But we like to, even though with that global reach, we like to see ourselves as a small business mindset with a local presence and certified consultants. Well, implementation really is just the starting point. Again, we stay with you for that long-term situation to help you with strategic growth. Here are some examples of some of our wonderful customers, all running Sage Intacct. They come from all spectrum, including a nonprofit, SaaS, technology, professional services, you name it. Now, I'm sure most of you have done your initial research on Sage Intacct, but just in case, here's a few highlights for you. So as you can see, again, Sage Intacct supports several industries and offers industry-specific functionality for each as well. And so, fun fact, Vision 33's biggest customer footprint is actually nonprofits for over 35% of our entire client base. So what we're able to do is with all of these customers from a wide space like this, we're able to build on the expertise in these verticals and helps us guide the customer depending on their industry down the right path, including with their implementation using their sector's best practices for things like reporting and other things. Here's a quick snapshot of Sage's global reach. Just keep in mind that Sage is, by these numbers, are growing year over year with both total and recurring revenue up at around 10% and annual recurring revenue growing about 11%. So now that most of their revenue is now recurring, which indicates their strong momentum behind cloud and their subscription models. And here's another snapshot that shows Sage Intacct's global reach. So Sage Intacct itself versus Sage as a company. Perfect. And if you're interested in any underlying numbers, Sage is as secure as it gets. So you no longer have to worry about things like downtime, backups, costly upgrades, maintenance. Just happens to work all the time without any of that needed. Also, Sage Intacct is a solution that was built from its first line of code in the cloud. So it's cloud native versus retrofitting for the cloud, which are a lot of ERPs on the market today, which a lot of people don't know. So because of that, it makes it an affordable and easy to use solution for finance teams that need only specialized tools that they may need now. And so it does this through its modular capabilities, which means you pay for only what you need now, and then you can add on added functionality later if you happen to need it later. And so that's why we call Sage Intacct best of breed, because not only those reasons that I mentioned, but it also has an open API connection, makes it easy for you to seamlessly integrate any other best of breed solutions that you use, say for HR, CRM, payroll, those sort of things. And without mentioning, I needed to talk about Saltbox. It's one area that I wanted to highlight because it's Vision 33's proprietary cloud-based integration tool. So speaking of those integrations, this was built in-house by our automation and integration experts. So when you need your Sage Intacct integrated to another solution that you currently use, again, like CRM, HRIS, etc., you can go to the Sage Marketplace. It's a place where you could find what system you're using and have a native integration that's already built for you. For anything that you need to integrate that isn't on the Sage Marketplace, so something maybe that's not as well known that you could be using, that's where Vision 33 steps in and uses Saltbox to create that connection for you. So I wanted to say many partners, they say they could do integrations, but this is the real differentiator for us. We don't just talk about integrations, we build them ourselves and we do them exceptionally well. And just a quick bragging slide, I'll let the numbers results speak for themselves. So Sage Intacct has been recently standing out across customer feedback with real rankings from several G2 reports. And so basically customers are saying they really like how easy it is to use and how quickly it could be implemented along with its strong results. Final word about Sage's embedded AI. So while the demo that we're going to show you today doesn't have a built-in demo AI environment just yet, we still wanted to introduce to you Sage Copilot. So you could see it as a smart productivity assistant that's there just to help you and give you the answers that you may need quickly with a search or just to help you with a faster, smoother month-end close. So be sure to bring it up to us when you have a chance to talk to someone here at Vision 33 after the demo. Perfect. That's it from me. Thanks, everyone. I'll turn it over to Matthew for the demo now.
Hi, everyone. As Brent mentioned, my name is Matthew, and I'll walk us through our brief Intacct demo today. Before we jump into actual functionality, just a couple of small things to cover. Again, as Brent mentioned, this is a native cloud environment, which means it is accessible via an internet browser. What that means is you can access your database, your company's whenever you want, wherever you are, as long as you have a device that can access the internet, an internet connection, and an internet browser. So, at home at the end of the day on a personal laptop, at the airport waiting for a flight, in the Starbucks in the morning, if you just like to stop and have a coffee and do a little bit of work, you're no longer restricted to a device that has a program installed on it, which limits you pretty good. With those on-prem solutions, of course, you're going to have on-prem servers, you're going to have server maintenance, you're going to have server security costs. All those are going to go away right out the window immediately. You don't need any on-prem servers or to pay for any extra server maintenance or security. Everything is safe and secure with Sage's data centers and partnerships through AWS and Microsoft. Next would be the updates to the solution. So I know with on-prem solutions that when an update is released, part of the responsibility will be passed along to you. Some people do them themselves. Some people hire external consultants to install the updates. In Intacct, that goes away completely. Intacct updates automatically 4 times per year, so once per quarter, and there's no action from you required. As a matter of fact, there's no even you don't have to confirm the update, but you can't even stop it. It just happens over the weekend. You log out on a Friday, you log in on the following Monday, and your system has been updated. These are not small updates. They are updates that come with actual functionality, not just little extra bells and whistles. Of course, sometimes some bells and whistles are added, but with every update, you will see some type of functionality come into the system. That doesn't mean it'll be in a module that you use, because being a modular based system, you don't need to have the full access that I have in this environment. This is a demo environment, so it's built out with every single module. But in Intacct, you only activate and pay for the modules that you're going to use. They're also seamless updates. They're going to happen outside of your normal business hours, normally over a weekend. Even during that time, the system is not going to be down or unavailable to you. And the updates, they don't ever really cause any big issues. Of course, every update every now and then is going to come with a small bug. You're updating a full software. Bugs are a little bit inevitable, but it's never the type of bug that is like, I can't do journal entries, or I can't print checks to pay my vendors, or I can't receive payments. It's nothing that is stopping you dead in your tracks. It is just like a small inconvenience, like a checkbox that used to default automatically before is not defaulting now, which gets hot fixed generally in the week of the release. So just small things that happen. It's such a seamless update that if it weren't for my homepage here, which tells me release 4 is here, you might not even notice unless you go into some configuration screens and you notice new functionalities available to turn on. If you are interested in what happens with each release, you can click on read the release notes. That will bring you into a full table of contents, very well organized by region because the updates are sometimes region specific. It does have a nice highlight video, which is generally somewhere between 10 or 15 minutes long. I have seen it extend to like 18 or 19, but never over 20 minutes. So I like to sit down with a coffee and watch this video, make notes of the functionalities that are coming out or being improved upon that interest me the most, or I think can help my ongoing projects or my past projects. And then I'll come out and I'll drill into the reading material in the financials tab over here. And as you can see with this most recent release, we've seen changes in a vast amount of the modules in the system: accounts payable, accounts receivable, budgeting and planning, cash management, consolidations. We'll skip construction. It's actually a separate product. Contract management, employee expenses, fixed assets, GL, and so on. So, fairly substantial updates that are generally going to bring improvements to your system. And if you are curious when each update will happen, there is access to the release calendar on the top of the screen here. Since the last release for calendar 2025 has already been released, the release calendar for calendar year 2026 is posted here. And these dates are in stone. Sage doesn't miss these dates. They're very hard targets. This is when the updates will occur. And about a week before the update is released, so on the 6th of February, the 1st of May, 30th of September, you'll actually be able to come into this screen and see what is planned for that release. So you can get out ahead of the game by about a week or so. So really great for the releases. As an example of one of the convenient releases that was issued this year, if anyone here is in Canada like myself, as was it June or May? I think it was May, when the HST rate in Nova Scotia changed from 15 to 14%. I think every client that I have in Nova Scotia sent me an email saying, "Hey, Matthew, HST rates are changing. What do we have to do to get ready?" And I didn't mind all the emails because the answer was simple for me. It was nothing. You don't have to do anything. The system is going to update. In fact, it updated a couple of weeks prior and put the functionality in there early so people could see it and get that peace of mind that, hey, it is here. It's going to become effective at that point in time. So just a little example. So all that out of the way, let's look at the system itself. You know, Intacct does a lot of things really, really, really well. From your core accounting modules that everybody gets out of the box, such as GL, accounts payable, accounts receivable, cash management, your financial reporting, obviously. Out of the box, you also get the order entry module and the purchasing module, which are just more powerful accounts receivable and accounts payable modules. They come with sales workflows or purchasing workflows. The procurement workflow is something that almost everybody looks for. Budgeting and dashboards and taxes. So it does all those things really, really well. If you need to build on more modules, like if you have a fair amount of fixed assets and you want a fixed asset management solution, it has that. If you have inventory and you want an inventory control system, as long as you're not doing any manufacturing, this is a fine inventory module. If you're a project type company and you have time and material projects or fixed fee projects with percentage of completion or milestone billing and so on, you can build on the projects module. So it does all of that stuff really, really well. And we're going to see a fair amount of this today. But where I always start and where I feel like Intacct really outshines a lot of competition is with its financial reporting capabilities. Not just the financial reports that you can build, because sure, other systems can build similar reports, but it's the ease of building those reports if your system is set up correctly, and the ease of isolating the data that you need to isolate in order to drive decision making within your organization. The backbone of what makes all of that so easy comes from what we call in Intacct dimensions. So out of the box, everybody gets access to the entity and location dimension, the class dimension, the department dimension, the employee dimension, and the item dimension. Regardless of whether or not you're an inventory type company, you still get the item dimension. We would just set your items up as non-inventory type items, but you can still track certain thing, revenue by item, quantity of items sold or purchased, and so on. Like you still get all that functionality. On top of that, GL account, customer, and vendor, they're also dimensions, but they're standard accounting items, really. So when it comes to these dimensions, I don't want you to put too much weight into the name of these dimensions, like location or department or class. These can be renamed to whatever you classify this as segments, revenue streams, divisions, outlet stores, whatever you want to rename these dimensions, they can be renamed to. Just think of them as buckets of reporting. So when we're coding transactions inside of Sage Intacct, we are going to code transactions to a general ledger account plus any combination of dimensions that you have deemed relevant for that line of financial data. So they're buckets of reporting. You can also think of them in a sense of if you're used to a system that has sub accounts after the core GL account number, whatever those sub accounts are or were whenever you used it, those are what would become your dimensions in Intacct because that is the purpose of a sub account is to isolate financial data, track it across different sub accounts or segments, or as we call them, dimensions. And by separating it from your core GL number, you do a few things. First of all, you are going to be able to minimize your chart of accounts. I've had clients that have come through with a chart of accounts at the start of our implementation project that had 10 or 11 pages, like 800, 900, 1,000 GL accounts, which is just absolutely crazy. If you have that many GL accounts, running detailed general ledger reports has to be a nightmare. Financial statement maintenance has to be a nightmare. Coding has to be a nightmare. There are just too many selections for you to make. You have more GL accounts, you're going to get more errors. It's just the nature of the beast. So they come off your core chart of accounts number, they come into their own standalone list, and like I said, they minimize your COA, but then they make the future maintenance of your COA a lot easier. Because if you think about a segmented chart of accounts, if you had 5 departments and you wanted to track the data in these departments across 20 different GL accounts, then you've all of a sudden got 100 GL accounts just here for this segmentation alone. And then every time you want to make a new department, well, that's actually 20 new GL accounts because you make every GL account dash the new department. And then every time you want to make a new GL account to be used across those departments, it's kind of the same thing, maybe a few less, but you see how your chart of accounts can just blow up. So it really helps you maintain your chart of accounts and still be able to track your data across those segments better than you even would out of a sub account. So as an example of that, if I were entering any type of transaction in my system, be it an accounts payable transaction, a general ledger journal entry, an AR invoice, any transaction that is going to hit my books, when I'm coding this transaction, not only do I tag a general ledger account, and I have a default GL account set up for this particular vendor, so repairs and maintenance comes down into the line level for me. If I wanted to track, if I were putting in some repairs and maintenance, and I say I had repairs and maintenance on some piece of equipment that were used by different departments. So the first repairs cost me $2,500. That piece of equipment was actually owned by our IT department. So I would tag my IT department. And then we can say the remainder of this bill, maybe $1,400, was on a piece of equipment that is actually owned by our admin department or our marketing department, and so on. I could keep adding lines here and keep tagging it out to different departments. At the same time, I can also tag this to a project if I wanted to. Each line, I could tag it to a class, or any other dimension that I'm using. And these dimensions that are currently down here hidden in the show details, I can very easily move those up if those are ones that you use and they're vital to you. I can plant whichever dimensions you need in the transaction table for you so you don't go looking for them. I just want to make sure people understand that you're not going to have to drill down into each line to get the dimensions that you need. And what this would allow me to do is if I do tag out, say, a class here, when I post this data and I want to go run any type of report, be it a general ledger detail report or a P&L, I have many different options at my disposal. I can run it for no dimensional filters, and I would see the full 3,900. I could run it for a dimensional filter of my admin department, and I would only see the 1,400, or for my IT department and only see the 2,500, or for a combination of or just my class 100 and 200 and see the lines. But if I were to put this transaction in and run a general ledger detail report and say, show me transactions that were tagged to class 100 and department 300, they're on separate lines here, my filters would not show me anything because both of those dimensions were tagged there. So you can actually report on combinations of different entries that you make as well. So as I said, it makes it really simple for isolating data that drives decision making or for filtering financial reports or kind of what we kind of say slicing and dicing for financial reports. So let's take a look at a couple of those things. If I come in here to run a general ledger detail report, I'll come into my GL and I'll choose my GL detail. I am going to run my report for way back in 2019. That is where the data is in this demo environment. I'll run it for first quarter here of 2019. I'm not just going to run it for, say, my P&L accounts. I'm not going to bother going into my balance sheet. You can use dimensions on your balance sheet. Outside of not-for-profits, most companies don't. They just use it on their P&Ls. And then in a general ledger detail report in Intacct, I can choose whether or not I see particular dimensional values. So if I want to see my department name on each line, if I want to see my customer name on each line, if it's there, I can add in my class. I can add in, remove, and reorder these all I like. So a fairly flexible GL detail report. And I click on view, and the system will do exactly that. Now, and I've just realized that I didn't only do my P&L accounts. I really only done my expenses. I skipped my revenue, but it doesn't really matter too much. So we see here first that we have some cost of goods sold for our subcontractors. We can see the class that this was entered to on each line level. We can see the department that it's relative to. We can actually see the vendor that we made that purchase from, and we can actually see a customer here. And the reason we see a customer here is that this is very much likely related to a project, an ongoing project in the system. So this is probably a reimbursable charge that eventually we're going to bill back to these customers. If I scroll down, I'm going to skip billable hours. I'm going to get into operating expenses. So we see some different departments. The services department in this company drives the revenue. That's why you're seeing all the COGS posted really to that department. It really only makes sense if you know that bit of info. So I'll scroll down to some operating expenses. But you see here now like my salaries and wages. So I see my full salaries and wages for the time frame, the first quarter. It's 310,000. At the same time, I can also see how each line was allocated out to what department. And then I can do that across any expense account. And as I get into some more, say, operational expenses, not payroll related expenses, such as like travel, we start to see the vendor or the customer if it's a project. So really great stuff there. Now, how the filtering works. So maybe after looking at this report, you say, well, it's fantastic, but I'd like to look at my payroll expenses just for, say, my services department or my admin department. I can customize this report. And when I run it, I can choose one of those departments. I can choose, say, my services department. And now when I click view, my general ledger detail report is very quickly going to filter, and it is only going to show me for that particular department. So if I scroll back down way past my COGS again and into my payroll related expenses, might have gone too far. Here's my salaries and wages. So now all of a sudden I can see, okay, my salaries and wages for my services department in that same time frame were 150,000. And that's kind of the idea. You can do this filtering by any dimension in the system. Class, department, vendor, customer, employee, project, item, you name it. The filters are there. You can also do it for a combination of particular departments, not just like services and a particular class, but multiple departments instead of all of them. So you see, I have a group here 100 and 300, which is going to be my sales and my admin departments. If I choose this filter and I click on view, that will run my GL detail report for just those two departments. It will respect my filters. You'll see that every line here is to either the admin or the sales department. So as you can tell, really easy to isolate that data and then do some analytical work with it. Now, just like we can do this with a general ledger detail report, it only makes sense that if we can filter this at a GL line level, we should be able to bring this into our financial reporting, and we absolutely can. So if I come out into some financial reports here, and we take a couple examples of a report. So I'll start with a profit and loss summary. I'm just going to show you a pretty stereotypical P&L that I've created in here. It is the out of the box format, basically just going to show this month. I am running it for December of 2019. Just keep that in mind when you see the report so it doesn't throw you for a bit of a loop. It just shows my current month. It shows my prior month. It's showing my monthly variance, right? 42 minus 30 is 12. And then we have our full year's P&L. Now, the format you see over here and on the columns, all of this, of course, is completely flexible. P&Ls tend to change from client to client. These groupings might not match your groupings. Maybe you don't have cost of goods sold or revenue. You go right into operating expenses. All that's fine. We structure your reports how you need to. And the same thing with the columns. I've just put these here. All of this is fully drillable, of course. So if I click on a dollar value, that will bring me to a GL detail report like we just saw a moment ago. And if I were to click on a dollar amount from here, that would of course bring me right back to a source transaction. In this case, it is going to be an invoice record. So this should bring me right back to my invoice record. And it does. So here I am on my invoice. But maybe after looking at this report, you say, it's fantastic, but I'd love to see a P&L for each of my individual departments. So just keep note here of the total net income, 2.526. You will have a separate report that is ready to go that expands out by your departments. When we run this report, when we click OK, we will get exactly that. All of a sudden, we have a P&L for each of our separate departments. We do have a column here for no department. This is data that was put in and left the department dimension blank. This happened before the control that exists in the system did exist. I can stop this from happening super easy right now, so you don't have to worry about this. But you see it's fully reconciled to the 2.526, right? And when I drill in from this report, it will be filtered based off of where I click the drill. So if I click here, I am going to drill into a GL detail report that is filtered just for my marketing department. It's not showing my department on this particular report, but this is running just for my that particular department. So that's how you can do this. Now, a couple of things. Of course, this operates just like the GL detail report. If I say I want to see that just for my admin department, because I want to send it to the manager of the admin department, and they should not be able to see the P&L for the other departments. They're not in a need to know for that. I can just choose a filter, and here it is. Here's the P&L for my admin department. I can also use that group that I used a moment ago. So if I choose 100 and 300, it is going to respect my filters and run just for those two departments. And here it is. You can also do something similar to this using parent-child relationships, but there are so many different ways to do it that it doesn't really matter what way you go about it. You can still get the same results. And this split out you can do by any dimension in the system that you use, just like the GL detail report. Now, people always see this, and I get the question all the time is, that's wonderful, Matthew, but you had that ready to go. How difficult is that really to do? The answer is it's not difficult at all. I will show you this exact same report that I ran a moment ago, my profit and loss summary, where we had the current month, the prior month, the period variance, and then the actuals for the full year. To split out a report like that by a particular dimension, you just take the column that you want to split and you say expand by, and I can go ahead and expand this by my departments. And when I click preview right now, that report is all of a sudden going to be changed. So I have my current month, all departments together, my prior month, all departments together, my period variance, but then my full year's P&L is split out by my departments. If I wanted to do something different, say I want to see this month and prior month and the variance, but then I would like to see maybe the trailing 12 months, like the full year. We can switch this to split by time period and expand by months. Or if we want to do it by quarter, I'll do quarter. Why not? When I click live report, it's going to do just that. It changes it. Now, all of a sudden, instead of expanding out by my departments, it expands out by quarter, which is, kind of a really nice report that we just put here. So it's really simple to do these types of things, which really makes your financial reporting really convenient and easy. And again, just really helps isolate data that you need to drive decision making in your organization. Building onto the financial reporting capabilities, they go hand in hand with the dashboards in Intacct. So in your system, you can have as many dashboards as you like. You can see in my system, I have, I don't know, 20, maybe more, maybe a couple less, give or take. No extra charge. These are free out of the box. You can build as many as you like. Each dashboard can be controlled on a dashboard by dashboard basis. You can pick who can see the AP manager dashboard, who can see the AR manager dashboard, who can see the CFO dashboard. So you pick and choose who sees which dashboard. So you still get your data security. I think these dashboards are great. They give you your data at a really high level and they come with some really nice features on top of that. So when this dashboard loads in, this is an old demo environment, so this is taking a moment to load in. This is very slow for Intacct, but it does happen with my older demo environment. Loading this stuff up, this is not how a general company runs at all. On the top here, they've called it a company performance graph. This is a net income graph. Top line is your revenue. You can see my key down below, the green. The orange is my net income, and the blue down here is my expenses. We've then got some performance indicators down below right here. So we're looking at our services revenue compared against our budget, our total revenue versus the prior month, our labor costs versus prior month, our chargeability rate versus prior month. These two are versus budget. If I scroll down a little bit more, you'll see more graphs. You'll see some more report cards. The differences here, is these are all kind of in percentage changes. We've put these ones as dollar amount changes just to show you the flexibility. And again, and some of these are going against 3 months prior. I don't know why we chose 3 months prior. Again, just to show you that you can pick the comparative value that you're looking to do here. So just one example of a dashboard. Now, a couple of features that come with this are if you want to see the underlying data, you can click on Show Data, and that will show you your revenue numbers just with the click of a button. So it's right at your fingertips. You can do that with any graph you see here on my dashboard. I can click Show Data on any of these, and you will see each individual dollar amount. So that's nice. Well, my favorite part about them, and I think most people here will agree, since these graphs are derived from financial reporting, they do maintain drill down functionality. So if I click on as I hover over, you probably can't see it because it's small. It's even small on my screen, but I can see my revenue was 1.084 million for the month of May. If I want to see the details, I can click that revenue dot. That will open up the revenue portion of my P&L, and I can continue to drill backwards from here. You're going to notice it hasn't taken me away from my dashboard. It's popped open in new windows, which is really nice so that if I want to get back to my dashboard, I just close a couple of windows. If I click on an expense dot, that is going to open up the expense portion of my P&L. And I think everybody can put together what happens if I click a net income dot. It will open up my full P&L. So the drill down functionality is really good, even from the dashboard standpoint. Moving away from financial reporting and dashboards, the next module that I'm going to talk about will be the purchasing module out of Intacct. As I mentioned earlier, the purchasing module really is just a more powerful AP module. If you don't need all of the functionality that I show in the purchasing module today, you don't have to use it, right? You can just go straight through AP. It's a very thorough, a very strong accounts payable module. You print checks, generate EFT files, generate ACH payment files, run your standard reports, your AP aging, your AP ledger, edit bills, approval policies, a very good AP module. The reason that we show the purchasing module is because most clients that move to Intacct, they're reaching a size of their business where they want to implement some type of procurement process. They want to control their purchases a little bit better. And the purchasing module allows you to do that, build out workflow or workflows in your system. It has in-house approvals on your documents that can be automatically routed based off rules we set up in the system. You're going to get a three-way or four-way match, whatever, how many ever steps you use in your procurement workflow. The documents are going to get matched together and give you a nice audit trail that everybody's looking for. And there are lots of other controls that you can put in place in here. So in my system, I have purchase requisitions that go to a purchase order that do go to a receipt of shipment, because if you remember earlier, I am in an inventory company. So we may want to record things like goods received but not invoiced and so on, and have our inventory affected, when we receive the shipment rather than when we're invoiced. When that goes into then the vendor invoice record. But if you notice under my purchase requisitions, I actually have three different types of purchase requisitions. I have a standard PR. I then have something we've called a quote, and I have something we've called a travel authorization. The primary reason for doing something like this, creating different document types that are in like the same category, is to control how they're routed for approval. So maybe our standard purchase requisitions, they go to, say, the manager of the department that we're making a purchase for. But when we put in a travel authorization, that's actually going to go to that employee's manager or something along those lines. So you can just put different approval policies on each document in your workflow. As I mentioned, those are in-house. They do come with like email notifications, notifications back to the original submitter. Was it accepted? Was it rejected? And notes from the approver on why it was rejected. Generally, you only get notes if it's rejected, and so on. So let's take a look at all of this. If I jump into first the three or four-way match, if I jump into, say, my purchase requisition list of requisitions in the system we've made, we're going to see a couple of statuses over here on the far right. We see pending, we see submitted, we see converted, and we see draft. All draft is if someone's in the middle of putting in a purchase requisition, something interrupts them, they have to leave their desk unexpectedly. They don't have to lose their progress. They can click draft. This doesn't post, it doesn't submit for approval. It literally does nothing. It just sat there. It saves their work as it was before they had to leave, so they can come back and just pick up where they left off. If we see a state of pending, that means this document has been entered into the system. It has gone through an approval policy if required, and it has been approved. And we are now allowed to turn this into the next document in our workflow to keep pushing it along. So the next step is naturally a PO. So I can click convert on this document, and I can say I want to convert this into different types of POs in this system as well for different purposes, but I will convert this into just a standard PO. So what that convert button does is take everything off of my original purchase requisition, paste it in here for me, and then I can do any edits I need to. Maybe we didn't receive the full one. We received like an hour of their a half hour of the full hour. We can partially convert this then, but it does save me from a fair amount of keying. It just copies it over. So saves time, saves errors, and then I can move forward. So that's what pending would mean. Converted means what I just showed you has already happened. It has moved along in the workflow. If you are curious how far along in the workflow the document has gone, we can click on the word converted, and that will give us an audit trail at the bottom. So we can see that this was started as a purchase requisition. That purchase requisition 0016 was converted into purchase order 00 or 0117. And then we can even see that that PO has been converted into an invoice. So this request of purchase has been completely fulfilled. It has moved along our entire workflow. If you want to see the PO, you can click on the PO. That will open it up. If you want to see the invoice, you can click on the invoice. It'll open it up. That three-way match is also available from the PO or the invoice. So if I come into my invoice record that I'm on right now, I can still click on the history and I can see, did this follow the right process? So a strong audit trail that's going through there. Probably the most interesting here is the submitted, right? And it's pretty self-explanatory. I think everybody can guess what it is. It has been submitted for approval and it is still awaiting approval. Now, the best part about this is it does come with a nice audit trail. So we can click on submitted and we can click on the approval history. And that will tell us how this was relayed for approval and what stage it is in. So you notice here that first this was meant to go to the department manager, who is Ryan. then the location manager, who is Emma, and then the project manager, who is Tom, and then it's coming to me for approval. So how was all that decided is the question. First of all, we configured an approval policy that said exactly that. First the department manager, then the location manager, then the project manager, then right to Matthew. I was named as a direct individual. The rest of that, if we come out to the actual transaction, if we take a look at the department that is tagged on the line level, you will notice that Ryan is labeled as the manager here. So the system looks at that. It says Ryan is the manager of services. That's what the rule says. Route it to Ryan. It has done the same thing for the location, which is going to be Emma. And then it has done the same thing for the project, which is going to be, of course, Tom, right? Now that workflow, first department manager, then location manager, then project manager, and then a particular person, a couple of things. First of all, it's probably overkill, right? Like that's four different layers of approval on a purchase requisition. I don't know, maybe it's not overkill. A little bit overkill in my mind, but that doesn't mean that I'm right. I've been wrong many times before. So, obviously you don't need to have that many steps, and the order of the steps is yours to determine however you so wish. I've actually changed this approval policy up since that document was entered in. But just to show you, you can come in here and you can choose value approval or value approval progressive or value approval based off of the department that it gets tagged to. Now, when you click value approval, you set your levels of approval, right? Level 1 is 0 to 24, 25 to 50, 50 to 100, and 100 plus. These are yours to pick. I can change these up right now on a whim if I wanted to change all of this up. And you see how my start of level 2 picks up where my level 1 leaves off. All right. So these are yours to kind of determine. You're not locked into, these certain levels. The difference between value approval and value approval progressive is if I have this on straight value approval and somebody puts in a transaction that is between 50 and 99,999, it's going to skip level 1, skip level 2, go right to level 3. Progressive, it would go first to level 1, then to level 2, and then to level 3. So it doesn't skip the prior levels. That's the only difference between progressive and straight value. And then we have our different types of approvals, our employee manager, our transaction manager, our transaction location, our transaction project, particular users. If you're curious what the difference between transaction department and just straight department is, transaction department will route to the manager of the department that is tagged at the line level. Just department, not transaction department labeled, will look at the employee who enters the transaction in your system, and it will look at the department that they are allocated to, and it will route the approval to the manager of the department that they work for. So it's kind of convoluted, but not that hard to follow if you know where it's happening. So that really is like the purchasing module. But that is a very brief and scratching the surface of the purchasing module. There are many other functionalities available in that module, such as variance allowances, mass processing of transactions, like taking 4 POs and converting those 4 POs into one single invoice. There's automation, AI functionality available in here. You get a vast amount of reports and things like that. So just a gloss over of this module itself, but a great module. Very similar to the purchasing module and it being a more powerful AP module is the order entry module. The purchasing module is certainly more popular than the order entry module because kind of regardless of what type of business you're in, you're probably going to want to control your purchases to some degree. But the order entry, like a sales workflow, is more so if you actually have that type of sales workflow. Maybe you need to ship out inventory and so on. So it's not uncommon for people to use purchasing, but then use straight AR. So order entry is just like the purchasing module. It's a twin of it. You get your workflow capabilities. You can have different types of sales quotes and sales orders and fulfillments and all that. It just doesn't have approvals like the purchasing module does. There's no approval policy on receivables or the revenue side of the business in Intacct. What people like most about the accounts receivable and order entry module in Intacct is your ability to send your invoices, your customer statements, or late payment notices. Intacct calls them dunning notices directly from the system. So if I wanted to send out my invoices, I can say print or email my invoices. I can set some filters down below. Again, going to go back into 2019 because that's where the data is. I'm going to click on this previously sent button because I use this demo environment every week, multiple times. I have pretended to send these documents probably 150 times. So I need to click this button because the system does think they're already sent. And unless I say, show me what I have already sent, it's going to filter them out for obvious reasons. You have other filters. So you can say, I want to send out my fully paid. Maybe they're acting as receipts and so on. All I have to do now is click on view. The system's going to go out and grab all my invoices that are in that time frame that I picked and match my filters, and it's going to bring them in here for me, and I can just email them from here. See how quickly it grabbed 143 invoices for me. Gives me a total 2.2 million. We're going to notice the email checkbox is not automatically selected, and some emails are missing. If there's no email here, it means we don't have an email put on the customer. And if this email checkbox is not automatically selected, that is just a customer setting. We just don't bother turning it on in demo environments, but it's very simple to just click it. And you can add or edit email addresses here as well. So that's how you can send your invoices. There is a nice audit trail, delivery status with all of this. You can make sure it leaves your system. You can see if it was delivered. If it bounces, it'll tell you did it bounce because of your email settings or the client's email settings. Just really strong backup to go with that. You can do the same thing with your statements, so your customer statements, and you can do something very similar with dunning notices. What you do with dunning notices is you set up different types of messaging based off of how overdue a document is. So you can, I'll turn off this enhanced view. You can say, I want to set up a dunning notice for different levels of overdue invoices. So like if something is 31 to 60 days overdue, we're going to send them a fairly nice message that is just says, hey, we don't have payment yet. Can you please let us know when you're going to pay? And away you go. You can also set up like minimum amounts. Like if you don't want to send a late payment notice to somebody that owes you like $25, you can put in the minimum amount we're going to send this for is $25.01. And then you can set up another level that says anything 61 to 90 is going to be like, hey, you haven't paid us yet, please pay. And then 91 over is like, pay us or we're cutting you off type of deal. Maybe not that harsh, but you get the idea behind it. So you can automate sending that type of stuff out, which is really, really convenient. The last thing I'll talk about today before I open up the floor for questions, and this will be quick, is Intacct's multi-entity management, as well as like intercompany and consolidations. So in the organization that I'm in at the moment, there are actually 7 different operating companies in here. We have one in Australia, one in Canada, one in South Africa, one in the US, 3 in the US, and one in the UK. They're all operating in their own functional currencies. So Australia enters and reports in Australian dollars and Canada in Canadian dollars. I'm then breaking Canada down into different sections, and even Newfoundland is being broken into Corner Brook and St. John's. This is done purposely because this is where I am, is in Newfoundland. And we have South Africa in the Rand and the US companies in USD and the UK company in pound sterling. They can all process multi-currency transactions. So I can go in my Canadian company and put in a transaction in US dollars or Mexican peso. Doesn't have to be a currency you see here. And at any point in time, I can create a set of consolidation books to consolidate the financials for any combination or just one of these entities into any currency I like in the world. So I could take my financials from my Canadian company and convert them into Australian dollars if for some reason I need to provide that to my Australian company or the Australian government. If you have users and you have this type of setup, you know that if you're working in one of your companies and you want to do work in the others, most systems require you to log out and log back in. In Intacct, that is not the case. So if I come into USA Company 1 and start the process of entering an AP transaction and I say, oh, darn, I meant to be in my Canadian company, I don't have to log out and navigate all the way back here. I just click my drop down list here. I click on my Canada company, and that is going to bring me into my Canada company, and it is going to bring me straight to that screen that I was on to enter in an AP transaction. Now, I will put this here because my boss tells me I'm honest to a fault. if you get halfway through entering this transaction, like if you have a vendor selected and a bill number in, and you've got all your coding down here done and you've coded all this out, and then you try to make this switch, it will make the switch and it will bring you to the AP pay bill screen, but it is not going to fill in the stuff that you have filled in down here. It's just going to, bring you to the screen. If you're concerned about this because you have users that should be able to work in one of your companies or two of your companies or three of your companies, but four, five, six, but not see the financials for particular companies, you can restrict each user to only be allowed to see what companies they should be allowed to see. So when they log in here and they click this drop down, they would only see the companies that they work for. If they only work for one, when they log in, they would actually just log directly into that company and they wouldn't be able to go anywhere whatsoever. So that more or less does it. I'll take a deep breath because I have to go really fast to squeeze what I do squeeze in here in 1 hour. What I will say before I open up the floor for questions is we haven't even scratched the surface of Intacct today. I like to say we've glossed over the surface of it, like we've just grazed over the surface. The modules that I did show you, I went over very, very quickly and showed you like the just base functionality of those modules. So in those modules I did show, there's even more things that I could show. Outside of that, there's a vast amount of modules that I just mentioned briefly at the start of my demo, such as time and expenses, project costing and billing, inventory control, fixed asset management, contract management, not vendor contracts, revenue contracts, like a SaaS company, a software company. Doesn't only fit software, obviously, but that's the example that resonates with people the most. Taxes, revenue recognition, prepaid expense amortization, budgeting, FP&A tool with budgeting and planning. Just a vast amount of modules in here that you can build on if you need them. So please keep in mind that you didn't see anywhere close to the complete system today. Just meant to kind of dangle a carrot, I guess, in front of you and hopefully make it so you want to see more and see what Intacct can do for you. So with that, I will thank you for your time and coming out. So we will call it. It has been a pleasure as always. I think this is the last one for 2025. So have a wonderful Christmas, but we hope to hear from you soon. See everybody.